It's wild, ridiculous, and so messed up that I can't help but laugh at how crazy it all was, though at the time, it sure didn't feel like laughing matter. So, Laura, yeah, we were friends for years, and she was in a serious relationship with this guy, let's call him Mike. They'd been together for about a year, or so I thought. On the surface, everything seemed great. They were always posting cute pictures together, going on trips, talking about their future. Perfect couple, right? But here's the thing, Laura wasn't as innocent as she looked. No one ever suspected it, but she was playing both sides of the game. She was with Mike, but at the same time, she was sleeping with another guy. The whole time. Right under his nose. The thing was, I had no idea who this other guy was, and honestly, I didn't care enough to pry. Laura was always so confident, so sure of herself, and she knew how to keep up appearances. She wasn't just your typical cheater, though. She was smooth about it, calculated. But then, things started getting weird. Laura began to feel off. You know that feeling when something isn't quite right with your body? That little voice in the back of your head telling you something's wrong, but you don't want to listen? Well, Laura started experiencing those symptoms. It wasn't immediate, but eventually, she started feeling these strange, burning sensations down there. At first, she thought maybe it was just some kind of infection, nothing too serious. But after a few days, she was still feeling worse, and it started to hit her that this might not be just a minor issue. One afternoon, she finally went to the OB. I'm sitting there with her, trying to be the good friend, and she comes back from her appointment looking like she had seen a ghost. I don't know how to explain it, but you just know when someone's face says more than they're letting on. I asked her what happened, and she tells me, in the most casual way possible, that she has chlamydia. Let that sink in for a second. Chlamydia. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like it's the most shocking thing ever, but for her, I think it was a wake-up call. This wasn't some random affair or a one-time fling. It was real. And the worst part? I had no idea how long she'd been dealing with it, or how she'd gotten it. She started antibiotics, and within a few days, she was back to normal, symptom-free. But the whole situation felt off. I didn't know who to blame, or whether I should even be involved. After all, she was the one who had been carrying this, and now it was just a matter of waiting to see how everything unfolded. But the story doesn't stop there, oh no. A few days later, Mike started feeling unwell. Stomach pain, some other vague symptoms, general fatigue. He thought it was just the flu or something. But I knew better. My gut told me this wasn't just a coincidence. Laura's been off lately, and now Mike was starting to feel bad. It was too obvious to ignore. Mike's stomach pain was just one of those things that didn't seem to make sense. It wasn't intense, but it was persistent. It wasn't pain per se, more like discomfort. He kept telling Laura about it, but brushed it off as nothing major. But I knew. In the back of my mind, I knew. And here's where things start to get interesting. While Laura was taking care of herself, getting treated for chlamydia, Mike kept experiencing these mysterious symptoms. Something felt off. At first, I didn't want to get involved. This was their thing, not mine, and I was just a friend on the sidelines, watching this all unfold. But eventually, it became clear what had happened. I think Laura knew it too. Deep down, she knew exactly how all of this started, where Mike had gotten his symptoms from. But she didn't want to admit it. It wasn't until she confided in me later that I found out the full truth. The pieces fell into place, and I realized the truth. She had been cheating with someone else, and now it wasn't just her health at risk. Mike was involved, whether he knew it or not. At that point, I didn't know how to approach the situation. I knew that what I was seeing was just the beginning of a much bigger mess. This wasn't going to end with antibiotics. This was the start of something far darker. Now, the way things unfolded after that was just insane. You'd think that after everything, after getting caught with chlamydia, after her entire life being exposed, Laura would at least come clean. I mean, she was already on the antibiotics, everything was out in the open, and the next logical step would have been to tell Mike the truth, get him treated, and figure out how to deal with the mess she caused, right? But nope. Instead of doing the right thing, instead of owning up to it and being responsible, Laura did something I honestly never thought she'd do. She didn't tell Mike. Not even a word. She didn't take the easy way out, the ethical way. Instead, she decided to fix everything without anyone knowing. It was like she had no concept of accountability, no idea of what it meant to face the consequences of her actions. She was so deep in denial, so desperate to avoid the fallout, that she came up with a scheme. How would you feel if your partner hid their affair for months or even years? Write in the comments. That could have gone horribly wrong. I still can't believe this part. It sounds like something straight out of a bad drama, but this is the reality of what she did. She started waking up super early every day. It was like she had some kind of obsessive routine that was all about keeping the lie going. She'd make Mike his protein shakes in the morning, the ones he drank after working out. Now, I'm no nutrition expert, but I knew what she was doing wasn't normal. What I didn't know at the time, what no one knew, was that she was secretly slipping something into his shakes. And not just anything. She was putting Zithromax, the antibiotic she had been prescribed for her chlamydia, into his shakes. Yes, the same antibiotic she had been taking for herself. She didn't tell him. She didn't warn him. She just slipped it in there, pretending it was part of his morning routine. For 5 days, she was secretly dosing him with half a pill of Zithromax, and he had no idea. Absolutely none. He thought it was just some vitamin supplement or whatever. She was essentially medicating him without his consent, with a drug that he didn't need and didn't know he was even taking. I know, you're probably wondering why the hell she didn't just tell him. Why not come clean and fix things the right way? Well, that's the thing. Laura wasn't about to face the consequences of her actions. She wasn't about to deal with the guilt of infecting him with something that was entirely her fault. No, she thought she could cover it all up by secretly treating him without him knowing, thinking that if she did it this way, everything would just go back to normal. She didn't want him to find out. She didn't want to face the fact that she had betrayed him. So instead of doing the responsible thing, she chose to manipulate the situation even further. The weird part is, Mike never suspected a thing. The Zithromax worked. His symptoms started to fade, the stomach pains and discomfort gradually disappeared, and it seemed like he was feeling better. Laura played it off as just him recovering from some stomach bug or maybe even a little too much stress. She kept up this charade, making him the shakes, feeding him his daily dose, and, for a brief moment, it seemed like everything was fine. She thought she had gotten away with it. She thought she could just sweep it all under the rug and pretend like nothing had happened. But deep down, I knew she had gone too far. You can't keep living in a lie like that forever. I'm not sure how long she thought she could get away with it, but as time went on, it just felt like things were getting more and more tangled. It wasn't just that she was cheating. She was actively trying to manipulate the situation to cover up her tracks, even if it meant putting Mike's health at risk. She had no idea if he had any allergies to the medication or if it would cause any other side effects, but she didn't care. As long as he was better, and she didn't have to deal with the fallout of what she had done, she was willing to play God with his health. For the next few days, everything seemed fine. Mike's symptoms vanished, and Laura was getting away with it. They went on like nothing had changed, like everything was back to normal, but I couldn't ignore what I knew was really happening. How was I supposed to ignore the fact that she was still covering up her mess, still playing this dangerous game? Mike had no clue. He was blissfully unaware, thinking it was just some random stomach bug that passed. He never knew what happened behind the scenes, what Laura had been doing in the shadows. And then, after all this, she thought she could just keep going as if nothing was wrong. They kept dating for months after that, but it wasn't the same. The lies had been piled on top of each other. She had made choices that were completely reckless, and I was left watching as everything unfolded. They were still together, but I couldn't pretend like everything was okay. Every time I saw them together, I knew the truth, that her actions, her manipulation, and her inability to take responsibility were the things keeping them together. As much as I wanted to be supportive and pretend like everything was fine, I knew that nothing about this situation was ever going to be the same again. I couldn't ignore how she had completely disregarded the truth, how she had manipulated Mike, how she had taken his health and his trust for granted. The relationship was a ticking time bomb, and it was only a matter of time before it would all fall apart.